Have you ever noticed that you are always there for everyone, but when you need someone, no one seems to be there for you? You answer messages quickly. You listen without interrupting. You show up when others disappear. You give your time, your energy, and your emotional presence freely. And yet, when you finally pause and look around, you realize something painful. You feel invisible. This experience is far more common than people talk about. Many kind, emotionally aware, and sensitive individuals go through life believing that being available, understanding, and forgiving will naturally create strong bonds. They believe that love grows through giving. But what they are rarely taught is this: love also grows through boundaries. People with kind hearts often become emotionally available to everyone. They hold space for others. They absorb emotions. They carry conversations. They fix problems that are not theirs to fix. They stay even when they feel exhausted. They are the ones who check in, the ones who remember birthdays, the ones who forgive without apology, the ones who stay loyal even when loyalty is not returned. But over time, something quietly changes. The more available you are, the less visible your effort becomes. Your presence starts to feel expected. Your kindness feels automatic. Your emotional labor goes unnoticed. And this is where neglect begins. Psychology explains this through a pattern called overfunctioning. In any relationship, whether romantic, familial, or social, when one person consistently gives more emotional energy than the other, an imbalance forms. The giver becomes responsible for emotional stability. The receiver becomes comfortable with emotional dependence. The giver feels tired. The receiver feels entitled. This imbalance is rarely intentional. Most people do not wake up deciding to take advantage of someone. It happens slowly, unconsciously, through repetition. When you are always available, people stop checking if you are okay. They assume you will always be fine. They assume you can handle it. They assume you will understand. And slowly they stop trying. One of the most uncomfortable truths in human psychology is that the brain adapts quickly to consistency. When something is always present, the brain stops assigning it high value. This is known as the familiarity effect. Just like we do not constantly think about air until we struggle to breathe, people stop noticing emotional support until it is gone. Your presence becomes emotional background noise. Another psychological mechanism at play is intermittent reinforcement. Humans are biologically wired to value things that are uncertain. When access is limited or unpredictable, attention increases. But when someone is always emotionally available, always forgiving, always waiting, there is no uncertainty. There is no urgency to change behavior, no fear of loss, no motivation to reciprocate. So the relationship remains unbalanced. Emotionally unavailable people are especially drawn to emotionally available ones. They may appear distant, inconsistent, or detached, but they are not empty. They still crave validation, attention, and emotional safety. What they avoid is responsibility. They attach themselves to kind people because kindness does not demand accountability. Kind people often give explanations instead of boundaries. They offer understanding instead of consequences. They say things like, "It's okay, I understand," even when they are hurt. And this creates a dangerous pattern. The emotionally unavailable person receives warmth without vulnerability. They receive care without effort. They receive love without having to give it back fully. Carl Jung described this as unconscious exploitation. The emotionally available person unknowingly compensates for the emotional wounds the other refuses to face. Your kindness becomes a substitute for their healing. But no one can carry someone else's emotional weight forever. Eventually, exhaustion sets in. You begin to feel drained after conversations. You feel anxious when your phone lights up. You feel resentful, but guilty for feeling that way. You start asking yourself questions you never asked before. Why am I always the one reaching out? Why do I always feel guilty for needing space? Why do I feel lonely even when I'm surrounded by people? These questions are not signs of selfishness. They are signs of emotional awakening. And then comes the moment that changes everything. You stop being available. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Not to punish anyone. You simply stop overgiving. You take longer to reply. You stop explaining your feelings repeatedly. You stop fixing situations you didn't create. You stop chasing people who don't meet you halfway. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You may feel guilty. You may worry that you are being cold or selfish. This is because you are used to being valued for what you give, not for who you are. But something interesting happens when you pull back. People notice. Those who relied on your emotional availability feel confused. They feel unsettled. The comfort they once had disappears. Some will reach out more. Some will question your change. Some will suddenly show interest. Not because you became more valuable, but because your absence made your value visible. Distance creates contrast. Psychologically, when emotional supply stops, the brain registers loss. Loss triggers awareness. Awareness triggers emotion. This is why people often miss you only when you stop being there. But here is the most important part. Stopping emotional availability does not mean shutting down your heart. It means protecting it. It means choosing reciprocity over sacrifice. It means giving where there is balance. It means allowing others to meet you instead of chasing them. Healthy emotional availability has limits. It is grounded in self-respect, not fear of abandonment. You are not responsible for maintaining relationships alone. You are not required to stay where you are not valued. You are not obligated to keep giving just because you always have. When you stop being available, you begin to see the truth of your connections. Some people leave. Some fade away. Some never reach out again. And that is painful. But what leaves your life is not love. What leaves is dependency, entitlement, and emotional convenience. What stays are people who respect boundaries, who value your presence, and who show effort without being reminded. Real connection does not survive on constant access. It survives on mutual choice. When you stop being available to everyone, you make space for yourself. You reconnect with your energy. You listen to your own emotions. You rest without guilt. You give without depletion. And slowly, you stop feeling invisible. You realize that your worth was never in how much you gave, but in who you are when you are whole. This is what truly changes when you stop being available. You stop being drained. You stop being neglected. You stop abandoning yourself for others. And in that space, real connection finally begins.